Welcome to the No Te Rindas Intermediate English Podcast, home of the Tenaz Intermediate English app. Disponible en noterrindaspodcast.us. Este es un podcast para hispanohablantes que quieren mejorar su comprensión auditiva del inglés de los Estados Unidos. Somos dos hermanos americanos con raíces mexicanas. Soy Gabo, o Gabe, aquí con mi hermano mayor Goyo, o Greg. On this episode, we're going to have a guest who teaches English and lives in Australia. In Australia, they speak English just like they do in the United States, but they use some different words and phrases than we do in the United States. Today, we're going to talk about some words and phrases that mean the same thing in the two countries, but we use very different words for them.
We are quite enthusiastic today as we have a very special guest, Milena from EnglishMadeSimple.net. Now, EnglishMadeSimple.net is a podcast that has been downloaded, listeners, 1.5 million times.
Wow.
Yeah, and what drew us to Milena is that she speaks Spanish. Now, she's going to tell you with humility that she doesn't speak Spanish well, but that's just because she's rusty. Está oxidada, right? She spoke Spanish because she lived in Chile with her husband, and her husband is Chileno. And now she lives in Australia, in Adelaide, Australia. So it's like getting late into the evening in Australia right now as we wake up for our Saturday morning. It's kind of cool to talk to her. Now, her contribution to the world, help me say this, Milena, is that you help people with their English listening and speaking skills by talking about what's going on with life in Australia and New Zealand.
That's right. You've got it. So it's everyday life, somebody who's coming from the outside, coming into Australia, trying to fit in, trying to, just live a normal life. And all the obstacles and struggles they experience. That's what I'm helping with.
We are excited to show our listeners Milena's format and formula and her personality. Before we dive in, Gabe is going to demonstrate for Milena his Australian accent. So listen, you guys know Gabe's voice. Now listen to him as he tries to imitate Steve Irwin. Take it away, Gabe.
So Steve Irwin, oyentes, was known as the crocodile hunter, and he was a famous Australian naturalist and zoologist, and he basically was Saint Francis of Assisi reincarnated, in my opinion. He just irradiated love and love for animals and love for people. And he died tragically. So I'm sure you all know who he is. All right. So here, I used to try to make my daughter laugh with this. So this is the kind of thing he would say. If you look carefully at this leaf, you can see there's a large female snail. All right, that really wasn't very good. I have to really think about it. All right, one more time. If you look carefully at this leaf, you can see there's a large female snail. There we go. Because he would be excited when he said it.
Yes.
A large female snail.
Scale of 1 to 10, Milena. How did Gabe do?
9 out of 10. No, it's
wow,
good. It's
9
good.
out of 10. Very
I would
good.
say. I listen to the Australian accent every day, and you're pretty good, Gabe.
Thank you.
Get right in.
We have a lot of listeners who are engineers, or they might be medical personnel. They might be people who work on the telephone. But ultimately, a lot of them do want to move to a country where they speak English and not just be able to speak English. So your podcast really grabbed us for that reason, because it's so targeted to that. And obviously, even if you don't want to move to an English speaking country, I've listened to your episodes and they're just so helpful.
Oh, thank you.
And you also have a lot of really great materials on your website. You actually have some books that you've made that are extremely useful.
Thanks, Gabe. It's really nice of you to have me on your show. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. So you nailed it. This is what my show is about. I'm speaking from my experience as an immigrant. So I'm originally from Serbia, but I've lived overseas more than I actually spent my time in Serbia. So I was 14 years old when I moved.
Wow.
Then I moved to New Zealand. As a family, we moved to New Zealand. We lived there for 12 years. Then we moved to Australia. So I was learning English, basically. I learned English in Serbia. I started learning when I was 13. So when we moved to New Zealand, myself, all the kids, myself, I have a twin sister, an older brother. We all spoke really good English, but my parents didn't really speak it that well. I have that personal experience looking at my parents, how they struggle, trying to fit in, looking for a job. They were both professionals. They didn't have the confidence, but they, eventually they did get to, work in their professions and all that. But it was actually a long road to actually settle. I actually meet in Australia all these professionals who are coming from overseas. They don't speak English well. They're not that confident, but they're very qualified,
Wow.
So most of these people actually tune into my show and they send me messages and they say how they enjoy the podcast or some episodes in particular, how it helps them at work. It's really good to receive these messages, and that's what keeps me going.
Well, it's a great service. So today we thought that what would be fun, I hope we can collaborate many times. We could talk about some of the differences in Australian English and American English. Our podcast is really about American English. And there are a lot of words that are used in Australia that are not used commonly in the United States for a particular concept. And obviously England had a huge influence on both the United States and Australia, but in some ways, I think Australia was more heavily influenced by England, whereas the United States had a much larger mixture of influences. So a lot of these words are still used in England. They're just not used in the United States. So I thought the first word we could talk about was in Australia, they use a word for guy that we never use in the United States. What's a word for guy they use?
Bloke. A good bloke.
A bloke.
Yes, it's an informal word. It's not a formal thing that you would probably say at work, but with friends you will say, "Oh, he's a good bloke."
All right. And you hear that pretty regularly as a common word?
Yes.
So that is a word. Yeah, that's a word that you're not ever going to hear in the United States unless someone is quoting British literature or maybe they're watching BritBox. BritBox is an app you can use to watch English television shows. It might be the equivalent of guy. I think we say guy. You could also say, there was a dude. There were two dudes there.
Or fellow.
Yeah. Two fellas.
Yeah. We have a whole episode on that.
That's right. That's episode 27, where we talk about different ways. We talk about like guy or man, talking about people in a colloquial way. So check that out. All right. Another thing that you guys use a word for that's different is we talk about hiking. We're going to go for a hike. So a hike is when we go out typically into the woods or the mountains, and you might bring a walking stick and a backpack. Is there a way, how do you guys talk about that?
Bushwalking. We say bushwalking. Like it's an activity you do for leisure. We're going bushwalking in the Blue Mountains. We have Blue Mountains in Sydney. Most people think Australia it's all beaches, nice sandy beaches and always hot. But we actually have mountains and snow. So we can go, let's say in summer, you can go bushwalking in the mountains. They're not as big as probably Chilean mountains there.
Okay. So
very few mountains are as big as Chilean mountains.
Well, the bush is a word we use sometimes for the outdoors, but it's not used very commonly here. We do have the word bushcraft. That's something that I'm interested in, and I've made Greg interested in. So bushcraft is like when you make things out of other things when you're out in the woods. So you might like for example, if you were going to pull some vines down and form them into a rope, that would be bushcraft. If we talk about the bush in the United States, most of the time we're talking about a little bitty tree or a piece of shrubbery. Like there is a bird.
Un arbusto, no? Un arbusto.
Un arbusto, right? So there is a cat under that bush, we would say. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry for taking us too far into the bush there. So
good job.
We have a phrase that we use for a place where you go and buy medicine and fill prescriptions. We call that the drugstore or the pharmacy in the United States. What do you guys call it there?
We also use pharmacy, but most commonly we use chemist. We're going to the chemist to pick up some medicine, to a chemist shop.
Wow, the chemist. So if I told someone that I was going to the chemist, they would be very confused, and I live actually near a very large chemical plant, a huge chemical plant. And there are lots of chemists that work there, because they make chemicals for developing photography and making plastics. So that's really different. The chemist shop sounds like, a place that you would go maybe get, if you were a child, you'd go get, a chemistry set or magic tricks. All right. That's really different. Okay. Another word that I noticed on an Australian show that I love called Mr. In Between. They are not sponsoring this show.
Yes.
They used a word for bathroom or restroom very, very regularly. What's a slang word in Australia for bathroom?
Slang, Dunny. I have to go to the Dunny.
The Dunny.
Dunny, Dunny.
Do you have any idea why it's called a Dunny? What does that have to do with?
I don't know. I have to be honest with you, but it's what people use it in a casual way. It's not something that's formally used again. It's probably just between friends. You would say I'm going to the Dunny.
To the Dunny. Okay.
It's a humorous way of saying toilet.
The toilet.
It's like, I don't know if you know in the UK, sometimes you also use it here. I'm going to the loo. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that?
Sure, the loo. Yeah, we don't use that here, but we do have slang for the bathroom. So we call it the John. That's pretty common. So like I'm in the John, and I hear this big boom, I'm like, what in the world? So that person's saying they're in the restroom when they heard this explosion. I think I heard an explosion coming from your restroom one time, Greg. So we also, you also might call it, the head in the military. It's called the head. And so that's caused it to sort of, move into mainstream. So people will be like, I'm going to hit the head.
Oh yeah.
But we definitely don't use Dunny or loo. I love it.
May I ask, when Gabe said the John or the head, I kind of heard an agreement from you, Milena. Are those two words that either are used in Australia or that you've heard from TV or something?
Just in the movies. Just what I've seen. Because we get a lot of American movies here. I mean,
yes,
we always watch some American shows.
Our disgusting culture infects everything. I'm so sorry. It's like ants. It goes everywhere. But we love it.
We're a virus. Yeah.
I want to do one more, and then I'm going to turn it over to Greg. We talked a lot about in the United States, people take cars everywhere, and in a lot of other countries, people walk places. So, it's in the United States, there are large areas that don't have sidewalks, and it can be kind of frustrating for people that are pedestrians that want to walk. We call it a sidewalk. A sidewalk is like a concrete path that you walk along, and it's just for people who are walking. You're not supposed to drive your car or motorcycle on it unless you want to get arrested by the police. So do you guys call it a sidewalk?
We call it footpath or pavement. And I don't know about you guys. Can you ride a bicycle on the sidewalk?
You're not supposed to. A lot of people do, but it's illegal.
Yeah, same in Australia. It's illegal. The cyclists have to be on the road.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so the Spanish word pavimento or pavimiento, I can't remember which one it is pavement, obviously, but pavement for us means it's just anything, any hard surface.
Concrete.
Doesn't have to be a path. Yeah. Okay. If you're on a basketball court that's made out of asphalt and someone gets knocked over, they hit their head on the pavement. That's the kind of thing that you would say. You hit your head on the pavement.
That wouldn't mean he fell on the sidewalk. So that would really sort of mean he fell onto the man-made stone surface. So
it's much faster to say pavement.
Footpath is great. That sounds, I think I could figure that out if someone said, hey, take the footpath here. But I also might imagine just a path in the woods without any concrete. And it might just be like a place where it was a dirt footpath. We would say that, but we wouldn't mean sidewalk. I don't think. You might say there's a footpath next to our cabin in the woods and it leads to the lake.
Okay.
And that would not be the case in Australia. If you said footpath, it means concrete.
Normally means it's next to the road, like a sidewalk.
Wow.
It's made of concrete. It could be paved with pavers, like bricks.
Okay.
With stone pavers. But it's still a footpath if it's next to the road.
All right. That's totally different. I love it. All right, Greg.
I love it.
You take over. I'll be quiet.
Okay. Si te gusta escuchar nuestros episodios y si usas Android, puedes bajar nuestra app Tenaz Intermediate English gratis de Google Play. Brindamos enlaces en nuestra página no te rindas podcast.us a todas nuestras apps. Haz un clic en la pestaña para aplicaciones. Gracias. All right. We go on vacation, Milena, in the U.S. We go on vacation. That means you usually get in the car and you drive somewhere, or you get in a plane and you go to Disney World or your aunt's house who is near the beach or near the mountains, and you go on vacation. And you have a different word for that.
We go on holiday. So
it sounds so nice.
We can go on holiday to Bali. We can go on holiday anywhere. I've heard people use vacation as well, I have to say, but holiday is more common. We also have something called public holidays. Do you have that in the US? Do you call it public holiday?
We do.
Or public vacation?
No, we call it a public holiday.
Mm-hmm. Holiday means that it's a designation on the calendar that you don't work on this day. That would not be called vacation on the calendar. You wouldn't write, vacation. You would write holidays. That's the Christmas holidays. It's Easter holiday. It's Thanksgiving holiday.
Or a bank holiday.
Or a bank holiday. Yeah, you wouldn't say a bank vacation. That sounds terrible.
No. Doesn't make sense.
No, we're good. Sit around and stand in line. Yeah.
Or in the queue. Mm-hmm.
That's right. We're going to talk about that. Yeah. So the next one is a shopping cart. The thing, I think they call it a carrito in Spanish, the thing you push in the grocery store. What do you guys call that?
It's a trolley. What you guys call a shopping cart.
Yes.
We call a trolley. So that's in the supermarket when you go to buy groceries.
Wow.
But if you're shopping online, you will put items in the cart. not
Oh.
in a trolley.
Okay, so it says cart on like the equivalent of your Amazon. I guess you might even use Amazon. I don't know.
Yes, we do. We have amazon.com.au.
Okay, .au. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to us, a trolley is a streetcar or a train that goes inside the city, usually in a really straight line, just between a few stops. That to us is a trolley.
Okay.
And the San Francisco trolley, I think, is the most famous example of that
Absolutely.
In New Orleans or in Savannah, I believe it's called a streetcar, but those are the same thing.
Like a tram? Did you say like a
Kind
tram?
of like a
Yes,
tram, yeah.
a transvia in Spain, transvia or a tram. Although to me, a tram, Gabe, is fancier somehow. It's like more modern.
And
Yes.
you'll sometimes see like if they want to make a van or a small bus that travels between, say, the airport and a resort, they might call that the shuttle, but you can also, in places where they want to make it sound, fancy or cute, they would call it, you can take the trolley to the airport, and sometimes they even make the van look kind of like a trolley, which actually trolleys for us run on rails, like a train, but they're typically just like one car that's kind of like a bus that goes on rails.
Interesting.
And very uncomfortable. Trolleys don't have air conditioning. You have to lower the window, and the seats are made out of wood usually. So I mean, it's kind of old school, as we would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It would be really uncomfortable to sit in our trolley.
Oh, really? Oh.
Because it's in a supermarket.
Come on. You're messing with my head.
Yes, we've all sat in those trolleys. It's just we were little.
Ella me confundió. No lo hagas. Yeah. So she's saying that you would sit in a shopping cart. Yeah, that would be very uncomfortable.
Yes.
You got me. Okay. But I'm not going to complain. That's our next word. I'm not going to complain about it. That was very funny. So we have, the next word is complain, which I guess is like quejarse. And, I've never heard the word you're going to use here ever in my life. How do you guys say complain?
So you can pronounce whinge.
Whinge.
Having a whinge.
Having a whinge.
It's uniquely Australian term. It's only used in Australia. Having a whinge, to complain, to whine about something.
Okay.
To complain about something, but we do have complain, but I think whinge is kind of playful way of saying complain.
So we have the complaint department
Having a whinge.
that you'll see sometimes. This is the complaint department in a cartoon or something. Do you have an equivalent to that, or it wouldn't be the noun form of whinge, would it?
No, I don't know.
Can you say like she was whinging? Is it a verb? Okay,
Yes.
That's what I thought. I think I've heard
Yeah,
that.
you can use it as a verb. Yeah, you can use it as a noun.
Okay.
Yeah, you must have heard that, Gabe, in one of those series you're watching.
Yeah.
The In-Betweeners.
In between gunshots. Yeah.
In between
Oh,
violence.
stop whinging.
Yes. So what's interesting is you used the word wine, and I want our oyentes to listen to that carefully, because wine is two words in English, both Australian and American English. So you have W-H-I-N-E, wine, to quejarse. And then you also have vino, right? Wine. So a glass of wine. And I find it very interesting looking at it in writing that whinge and wine are just one letter different in how they're spelled. There's just a G in whinge. So I wonder if they come from the same word somewhere in history.
Me too. I might look that up after this episode. That's a very good point.
Okay.
But whining is a unique type of complaining. It's not the same as just to complain. Whining is associated with children, particularly. And like, if I might say, like, I'm tired of eating Brussels sprouts. That would be whining. But I can also complain at the bank, and be like, I noticed there was an error in this, bank statement. That really wouldn't be whining. That would be complaining. But would both be whinging?
I think it's more related to whining.
Okay.
Rather than complaining.
Okay. Very good. Well, I'm glad I asked.
There's a hint of judgment there that you're needlessly complaining. You shouldn't be complaining, but you are. So you're whinging or you're whining.
Okay. So yeah, when we say an adult is whining, that has a negative connotation. Like they're needlessly complaining or they're making a big deal out of something that they shouldn't be.
Yes.
Yeah. Or they're making a mountain out of a molehill. That's another one we say. We're making a mountain out of a molehill. You're making a big deal, like Gabe said, a big deal out of something. Yes. Those would both be whining.
Yeah. Same in Australia.
All right. Next, we have, I need to stand in line at the bank or the grocery store or what we call the DMV, which is where you get your driver's license. That's a famous line you have to stand in. I got to go stand in line at the DMV. What about in Australia?
We call it a queue. So you're gonna
like the letter Q?
No, not like the letter. Well, it sounds like the letter Q, but it's longer than Q. It's spelled Queue.
Wow.
Q.
So they actually took the letter Q and made it into a Q. They made it into a line. That's kind of cool.
Yes.
Okay.
They've added more letters. I mean, most of the English language is like that, isn't it?
It really is. They like to make things complicated in English, I guess because of all the other languages that are mixed into it. Yes. So I said bank and grocery store and the place that you get your driver's license, the DMV. Does anything else have a queue in Australia?
Most government services, you're bound to wait in the queue somewhere.
So, Greg, I use the word...
at the concert.
Go ahead, Gabe.
I use the word queue every day at work. Do you use the word queue daily, Greg?
I think since I became an adult that we have... I mean, I went to England when I was 21 to study, and so I learned the word queue there. And maybe I just noticed it more after that. But I don't think that you say that there's a line on the phone, like there are 4 or 5 people waiting to talk on the phone with the company.
Exactly.
There's a phone queue. And so I think that's what Gabe's referring to.
Right. I work in a call center. And so we talk about the queue constantly. Oh, we have 75 people in queue. How is the queue? Oh, it's small. It's large. And then you also could talk about a print queue, which would mean, that there are print jobs waiting to come off of the printer. But we don't ever use it for standing in line. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And you wouldn't say there's a printer line, but there is a printer queue or a print queue. That's absolutely fascinating. Yes. Okay. That might be why we say queue more as well, because we all have printers now, print queue.
It's the same in Australia.
It's the same in Australia?
For printers.
Okay.
For printers.
All right. We have one more word, if you're still with us, oyentes, and that is, to me, I'd never heard this. I'm very excited to hear about it. And that's how they say afternoon or la tarde, the afternoon in Australia.
We say Arvo. That's A-R-V-O. Arvo.
What in the world?
It's abbreviated. We abbreviate words in Australia. We always abbreviate words. And
so afternoon.
So see you later this Arvo.
So afternoon is getting shortened to Arvo.
Yes.
Wow.
That's right.
So use it in a sentence again?
It's slang. It's just easy. See you later this Arvo. Let's chat next Arvo. Tomorrow Arvo, let's say. Let's chat tomorrow
Arvo. Wow.
Yeah. Nothing like that. We might say, I'll see you in the PM, or we can check tomorrow AM to shorten something, but that's about it. But I love it when we do truncate things or shorten them. It's super interesting. And I remember the first time I heard someone say porfa instead of por favor. And I was like, okay, it's not really necessary to say the vor because we know we're going to fill that in. It's truncated. So humans, I guess we tend to want to make things easier to say. I know I do.
Yeah. Now, we drop G's a lot on progressive or gerunds in American English. I assume that you do in Australia, given that you like to shorten things. Do you say fixin' instead of fixing or runnin' instead of running?
Yes, we do. Of course. We abbreviate everything.
We really want to thank Milena. Tell us the name of your website, Milena.
Yeah, you can find me at englishmadesimple.net or englishmadesimple.net. That's where I keep all my episodes. You can also find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Tune in to my show and see if you like it. This was really a blast. I had a great time with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you from both of us, for sure.
So check out English Made Simple on your podcast player. And then also, if you feel like it, you could listen to some old episodes of No Te Rindas.
That's true. We are also on Spotify. All right. Well, Milena, get some rest. I hope that later on you're sleeping really well.
And that you have a good Arvo tomorrow.
That's right. And then you have a good Arvo
Yes.
tomorrow.
All right.
I'd love it if you guys use it tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, this Arvo, I should say. This Arvo, because it's day for you guys.
Yeah. I'm going to confuse my wife later today by telling her that's the Arvo.
Well, thank you again. My goodness.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Okay, oyentes, it's time for our quiz.
Ding, ding, ding.
Que se queda en el coco? What sticks in your brain after listening to today's episode? Gabe, do you want to do the questions?
Sure.
Or do you want me to?
Okay, I'll do them. Number 1, which of the following phrases is used in Australia for bathroom or restroom? Okay, is it A, Arvo, B, Dunny, or C, water closet?
Okay, well, I remember that Arvo is the first letter of afternoon. That's not it. It's Arvo is afternoon. And water closet, we didn't discuss today. So it's got to be B, Dunny. Dunny is how they say baño or restroom.
Right. That's correct. That is a slang word that they use frequently for restroom. Number 2. Which expression that we talked about is not used in the United States, but is used in Australia? A, holiday, B, pavement, or C, whinge?
Okay, so we do use holiday, just not in the same way that they do. We say vacation. We also use pavement in a different way than they do. Pavement to us is just any place that has pavimento. And then I'd never heard before this episode whinge, and that's like, was it whining?
Yes, it's like a particularly whiny type of complaining.
Okay.
So nice job. That's 2 in a row for you.
Thank you.
Very
All right,
odd.
May I do number 3?
Okay.
All right, number 3. If in the United States I said, Charlie pushed his shopping cart and got in the line at the supermarket, how would I say that in Australia? A, Charlie pushed his didgeridoo and got in the loo. You know what, Gabe? I want you to read these choices in your best Australian accent. I think that would be the most appropriate. Go ahead.
Okay. A, Charlie pushed his didgeridoo and got in the loo. B, Charlie pushed his trolley and got in the queue. Or C, Charlie pushed his Charlie pushed his holiday and gotten the bloke.
All right. Well, which one of those is correct, Gobble?
B, to say Charlie pushed his shopping cart and got in the line, Australians would frequently say Charlie pushed his trolley and got in the queue.
That is correct. Well done. But I still beat you 2-1. Well, we want to thank our patrons. We have a new patron this week, Raquel B. Thank you so much for listening to us and showing support. And you can see what kind of goodies that Raquel B is able to access by going to www.patreon.com/No Te Rindas Podcast. And like Raquel, we will shout you out in the next episode. And depending on your membership, you can also do things like get exercises that reinforce the concepts from an episode. We also want to shout out several cities that have been listening recently. Gabe, it's a day of capitals. It's really striking. We have La Ciudad de Panama, Buenos Aires, San Jose, Costa Rica, Santiago, Chile, Reykjavik, Iceland. That's cool. Hello to you guys up there. Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. The Bronx, New York, Gabe, is our final hello today here in the USA.
Oh, wow. Well, let's give them a cheer.
A Bronx cheer? No, let's not.
Well, we do want to
a Bronx cheer is well, hang on, we have to explain. A Bronx cheer is an unpleasant sound that you make when you disapprove of something. Go ahead, Gabe. What does a Bronx cheer sound like?
I think it's kind of like
yeah, that's a Bronx cheer. I don't know if our listener has been in the Bronx long enough to know as a student of English what a Bronx cheer is, but now you know. Thanks.
Sorry about that. Yes. Well, we want to remind you to please take a moment right now to stop and leave us a review or a rating on your podcast listening platform. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, we hope you'll leave an actual review. We love those. If you're listening to us on another podcast platform like Spotify, please leave us a 5-star rating if you think this show is useful to you. Please take a minute, pause the show, and do that right now.
Thank you so much for any feedback you can give us on the internet, as it helps us reach more folks. And finally, our website, as you may recall, is noterrindaspodcast.us. And there you can find a link to the Google Play Store applications that we've developed. And these correspond to actual episodes of the show. So you can practice what's on the episode on your Android phone. Gabe, that was so much fun today to talk to somebody in Australia. And I think we should do more episodes like these. I don't know, maybe with someone in England. Someone in Belize. What do you think?
Oh, I would love that. Yes, we definitely have a lot of crossover. English is pretty much the same everywhere we go. So hopefully the listener will understand that if they can understand one type of English, they're likely going to be able to understand another area's English. But there are little differences, and it was really fun to explore some of those today.
Yes. Well, I love you, bro. I hope we can do this again soon.
All right. I love you too. Please watch out and don't hog the Dunny.
I promise. Bye-bye.
Okay. Love you. Bye.